Before I start this morning, Dr. Avery was talking about people around campus that we emulate, and there's just three people I wanted to say have been impacting my life over the last few years. One of those has been Dr. Avery. He's been an enabler in my life over the last few weeks, and I appreciate all that he's been doing for me. And also, I've been working with Lyle Witt, and he's been a friend to me. He's been someone who's iron sharpening iron. And you may not see Lyle Witt standing up front in chapel, but I appreciate the influence that he's had in my life over the last few years and making me a better person. I also want to thank Bill Marshall, and I just appreciate his life. If you could put it in one word, it would be grace. Grace is where God brought him from. Grace and how he handles his relationship with others. Grace and how he treated me. And I just appreciate these three people here today for causing me to be a better leader. And I hope that I can pass these on to people that are around me and the lives that I influence today. If you have your Bibles today, if you will, turn to John chapter 6, verses 1 through 14. And I don't know if Dr. Pope got a hold of my notes today, this week or not. But I'm going to talk to you about blessings. And this is a simple passage. And I hope this morning that I can pull out some thoughts to you that will help you throughout this week in your spiritual walk. And I just appreciate all of you being here. I hope you have your Bibles. If you don't, we'll have it up on the PowerPoint here this morning. One of the first things I want to point out here, and I'm not going to take time to read through the passage. We're already eating up time here. One of the first things I want to point out here in this passage here is that Jesus is blessed with people. In this passage here, John the Baptist has just been killed. Jesus is actually running, in some senses, hiding. Not necessarily hiding, but in a sense, trying to escape, being executed himself. And he has a following. He has a crowd that is following him. And these people came to hear Jesus. And they weren't just possibly following him for the sake of salvation, even though in the last verse it does say that they do realize that he is the prophet. But they're mainly following him for the miracles, and they think that he is going to be the next leader and so on. But Jesus is blessed with people around him. And I want us to focus our thoughts this morning just on the crowd just a little bit this morning. If you read about the crowd throughout the Bible, each crowd has different characteristics. If we talk about the crowd of the Tower of Babel, they were unified. If we talk about the crowds in some parts of the Bible, they were a hindrance. There was the woman that was trying to reach Jesus' garment. And we found that the crowd was a hindrance to her and not allowing her to get through. There was also 4 friends who were trying to bring their friend to Jesus, and they found that the crowd was a problem. They had to let their friend down through the roof because the crowd was in the way. Also, there's the critical crowd that surrounds Zacchaeus. There's the confirming, praising crowd on Good Friday. There's the condemning, angry crowd. There is the crucifixion, the condemning, angry crowd of the crucifixion. And there's also the curious crowd that we see here in John chapter 6. People that want to see Jesus and just see his miracles and see what Jesus is doing for their life. But my question for you this morning here at GBS, those of you in ACA, those of you in high school and college here, is what kind of crowd are you? If we could describe your features and qualifications this morning, what kind of crowd would you be? We have surrounded ourselves here around the name of Jesus here today. And my question is to you, what kind of crowd are you? If I were sitting in this pew this morning and I felt like God was calling me to an altar of prayer, would I find it easy to come to the throne of grace with this crowd that surrounds me? I've been around Bible colleges long enough to know that I've seen the critical crowd. I've seen the double-minded crowd. I've seen those that have sought fully after God and so on. And the question I want to leave in you throughout this school year is, what kind of crowd are you? And what kind of crowd are you bringing here today? Are you the curious crowd that you're just here to see the miracles and hear the good sermons and learn the good lectures that are preached in our services throughout the day? Or do you truly want to see Jesus? Do you want to have him first place and foremost in your heart? What kind of crowd are you today? And a few of my thoughts here, I wanted to focus mainly on the freshmen and have you think about some things here. I know that you guys just walked on campus, and you may think that you're the bottom of the pile. And I've been there before. I know what it's like. I know what it's like to be new in some places and feel like so much information is coming at you, feel like you don't have an impact, But even a new baby in my home has an impact on my home. Even new people here, if 50 plus new people walk on campus, come from different backgrounds, different areas, different places, different thoughts, different ideas. You guys have an impact here at GBS and throughout this year. And you guys could create the crowd. Of course, older seniors and juniors and so on, you guys should be setting the standard already. But again, the question is what kind of crowd are you going to be throughout this year? I'm not asking you to be the one that works up things. I'm not asking for you to be the one that puts on things. But what kind of crowd can you be this year that surrounds Jesus? Will people find it easy to find it through the throne of grace? I also want to focus at it from the minister aspect. I know that I've been in ministry now for 10 plus years. And here we see Jesus looking on this crowd of people. And there were some situations where I've been in where I've said, God, if I could have the ideal congregation, this is what I'd like to have. That's a selfish mindset, is it not? I remember when I was in Bible college and I had a ministry where I worked in, taught in nursing home and so on. And I remember saying, God, help me out in this ministry. I don't really enjoy the smells. I don't really enjoy all that goes along here. But God, help me to minister to these people and to love these people. When you walked into the nursing home, there was considered a half side and considered a whole side. Half side being people that had a little bit more problems than the other place. But there was there that I found people that I truly love, people that I look forward to seeing each and every week. I remember the songs that they always connected with was Amazing Grace and Rock of Ages. I think we sang that every week. You could try new songs, they wouldn't hardly sing, but you sing Amazing Grace and Rock of Ages and their lives would light up and they'd start singing without a songbook and everything in hand. But wherever you are, whatever crowd that you're looking on as a minister here at GBS, whatever field of ministry you're being put in, say, God, help me to love, help me to learn, look on the people with compassion, realize that this is what God has blessed you with. Another thing that I see here is that Jesus is also allowing this crowd to see blessed with a problem. And Jesus is kind of stirring up things here, and he's looking at Philip, and he's saying, how are we going to solve this issue? Here we have this great crowd, and how are we going to get food for all of these people? And of course, Philip goes right towards the material world that he sees, and he says, Jesus, even 2/3 of a year's worth of pay would not even suffice to pay for this crowd that is here. And of course, Andrew focuses on the meagerness of the meal. Here's one little boy with such a small meal this morning. But I just want to talk to you just a few minutes here today about problems that you see in life. All of us here, if we were to go around the room, have a problem, whether it be financial, social, whatever our problem is. They said President Bill Clinton became a better president because of Newt Gingrich. Every time he stood up in front of the House, people used to shoot his ideas down. Newt Gingrich used to shoot his ideas down. And they said he became a better president because of this problem that he had to continually deal with. JFK, whenever he was younger, he was actually a sickly kid. He laid in a hospital and he constantly read. They said he was a speed reader and he read through many volumes of books. He later became an author and later eventually became a president. And possibly this problem of sickness possibly helped him to know more, read more, and so on, helped him in his presidency eventually. There's the story of Amy Carmichael, who had brown eyes. She wanted blue eyes, but then God used it in her ministry later on. For those of you that don't know that story, I didn't choose to tell it today because I know it's so widely known. She had brown eyes and went into the ministry there to save young girls from the temple and so on. And if she'd had blue eyes, she would have been recognized. But she passed off as an Indian lady. And so this problem helped her become something great in life. You know, there's many times in life that I viewed people as problems. I viewed my parents as problems. I've viewed my wife as problems sometimes. I've viewed my children as problems. But you know what? God used those times in my life to show me that, Scott, these people are not the problem in your life. You're the problem. You're the one that needs to learn patience in this area. You're the one that needs to learn how to deal with grace. And you're the only one that needs to learn how to wait on others. And some of you people sitting here today, you might be saying, I have a problem, dear Lord. My problem is my teachers, or my problem is my RA. you know what? The problem might not be them this morning. The problem might be you yourself. It might be your attitude on life and your introspection on the way that you're looking at things. And God put those people there for a reason. God has a problem in your life for a reason. And it's so easy for us sometimes to forget to go to God. I know that just this week I was thinking about something, a problem in my life, and I was going rampant on what I should do to solve this problem. And I was going through my outline through this week as I was working at UPS and so on. And I came to this point, and the challenge came across: have you turned it over to Jesus yet? And truly, I hadn't. I hadn't turned it over to Jesus. And there's the illustration out there about the shepherd that gives out that says sheep in the midst of the storm actually run away from the shepherd. They don't run to the shepherd; they run away from the shepherd. What is it about our instinct that causes us to run from God rather than turn to God and give him our problems? So whatever problem that you have today, God has it there for a reason. God knows about that problem. God has it there to make you a better person in life. I could go off on several rabbit trails here. I'll just choose one. I remember when I first got married, my wife used to love to shop. And I used to get so frustrated. My wife would spend time shopping, and I would get frustrated. And I remember one time taking her into a store and left her in one spot, and I went out to the car and was doing something for an hour, came back, and she was in the exact same spot, in the exact same aisle, still looking at the exact same thing. And I said, honey, what have you been doing? And someone passed a book along to me, While We Wait, Serving God While We Wait, or something. I don't remember the exact title. But it says, while you're waiting, what are you doing? And I began taking those times, letting my wife enjoy her shopping, and I began taking a book along or a sermon along, working on outlines. And God gave me those times to actually grow more in Him. And something that I viewed as a problem became a potential in my area to grow closer to God. So what are your problem areas God can help you to grow in and improve in? Another thing I want to point out to you, I had this slide in here, your problems can make you better. But another one I wanted to point out here is Jesus was also blessed with one that was prepared. I've been a teacher for 10 plus years, I think 8 years now, and I know the value of one that is prepared. I know what it's like to walk into that classroom and no one has their homework ready except for maybe one person or something like that. And I don't know what it is about a teacher, but that actually brings joy to them to see that one person paid attention at least. Somebody brought their notes, someone did their homework, and they stand up and said, yes, Mr. Blackman did say that yesterday. He had it in his notes, he had it on the board, he did all these things. And the value of one prepared. But Jesus has one person that's prepared. Yes, it's a little boy. Yes, it's a meager meal. Yes, it's only 5 loaves and 2 fishes against so many hundred people that are here. But the blessing, the one that's prepared. I remember sitting in a youth camp service several years ago, and there was a boy over to my right. His name was Jose, and he had been adopted into a family, a taller, tough guy. I think he later went into the Marines, if I have my story correct. I kind of lost track of him in present day. But I remember he was in my youth ministry, and I worked with him. He's not someone to show emotion. It was a morning service. It was during the song service. I looked over at him, and I could just see him covered with the presence of God. And I remember standing up after the music was done, and I said, Jose, I want you to stand up and just tell us what's on your heart today. And I remember him standing up and testifying, and God's presence fell on the service that day, all because one person came to service prepared. One person came there with their heart open to who Jesus was. They were ready to receive. They were ready to whatever it takes that God was using them for that day. The value of one prepared. Friend, I know you have many different things that are going on throughout your school week, things that are keeping you busy, but there's value in one being prepared. We have a crucial job out there, and that is to minister to the world that is out there beyond us. And yet we live so lackadaisical. We go back to our rooms and play video games, and we want to go play sports at every chance that we get, and every social time that someone calls on the phone, we have to talk. And if mom's there and has to check on us, we have to know what she's doing and let her know how we're feeling. But never time do we hardly invest in our relationship with God. And my challenge for you is to be that one prepared. Be that one prepared in your classroom. Be that one prepared spiritually throughout the week so that when you have a chance to witness or to stand up for Christ, that you can do that. And the value of being prepared in wherever we are. I was in a master's degree, and I came across this quote. It was actually from a student that was going there. And it said, chop your own wood so that others stay warm. There's going to be many other people that you rub shoulders with every day that they're not prepared. But can I tell you something? You can be prepared. You can be the one that encourages them. You can be the one that lifts them up throughout the day. You're the one that can bring them that devotional thought throughout the day and strengthen them wherever they are. And I challenge you to walk out of here prepared. I challenge you to walk into classroom prepared. I challenge you to walk over to the cafeteria prepared. When you go out to your public service and your jobs, I challenge you to be prepared. And whatever situation that God puts you in. Another blessing that we see here, and I'm almost done, 2 more points here, is the value of prayer. It says here that says, and Jesus took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, he distributed them to the disciples, and the disciples to them that were there sat down, and likewise the fishes as much as they would. And when they were filled, he and his disciples gathered up the fragments that remained, that nothing was lost. We have the value of prayer this morning, friend, and I know sometimes we maybe overthink this point or don't invest in this area enough. But the blessings of prayer here today, that if you have a problem, you have a Father that you can go to. And Christ exemplified that. Philip, what are we going to do about this enormous problem that we have? And yet Jesus takes the bread and turns to the Father and say, Lord, will you bless this meal so that others may be blessed? I just wanted to point out one story to you, and maybe 2 here. I remember there was in the church setup that we were in when I was younger, my mother and father, the building deed was passed down to the builder, to the children, to the great-grandchildren, and they allowed my father and mother to be there in the church and to use the church, and the only thing they had to do was keep up with it and so on. And I never even met the children, the grandchildren. Basically, they looked at it as an investment purpose, and I guess eventually they came up with the idea that they needed a new Mercedes one day, and so they turned around and wanted to sell the church, and my parents did not have enough money to buy, and I guess they possibly in the back of their minds just thought it was going to be there forever. And so I remember the doors closing. I remember my parents having church in their home. I remember standing there in front of 15 to 30 people in our living room and preaching or leading singing or praying. I remember setting up chairs every Wednesday and Sunday for the services and so on. But I remember my parents also praying and saying, God, we need a church. And my mom eventually got specific, and she said, God, I want a little white church. And a few months later, I don't remember the time lapse that was there, but eventually my parents drove past a little white church. It was actually closer to their house than what the other church was. And the doors, they talked to the church next door. It happened to be associated with another church that was there. And they allowed them to use the church, and for free. The only thing they had to do was pay light bill and electricity and so on. And here this gift, this prayer was answered just because of someone getting specific in their prayer. Just one more story in this avenue of prayer. I remember being in Bible college, and I used to go to classes, and then I would go to lunch, and then go to my job, but I was there during a spring break or something of that nature. And so the landscaper that I was working with, he said, Scott, I want you to work all day, to which I replied, I'd be glad to. But it came about 10 or 11 o'clock, and like any college student, I got hungry, and I began praying. I said, Lord, I don't have any lunch. I don't have a refrigerator back at my dorm to even have a lunch and, prepare all those things, and just didn't have the avenue for it. And I began praying. And that day he stopped for lunch, and just to show you the enormity of the situation, he was sitting across from me, and he says, Scott, the last time I stopped for lunch was back in 1996 or 1997. He gave me the specific date. This was 2001 or 2, by the way, for those of you that think I'm extremely old. But this was like 4 or 5 years previous, and he told me the person he stopped with, and he told me where they ate at and so on. I never told him that was the desire of my heart that day, but I feel like that was a specific answer to prayer. God knew my need. God knew that that he was answering my prayer that day. And one of the last thoughts I want to leave with you today, I'm forgetting my slides here. I had a picture here for a specific prayer, and that's actually what the church almost looks like right there, except they have foundation covering around underneath. But a little white church. It was built back in 1910. And blessed with plenty. This is my last note that I want to close with today. And it says, therefore, they gathered together with them, filled 12 baskets and the fragments, 5 barley loaves and the remaining over, and above them that had been eaten. To those men, when they had seen the miracles that Jesus did, this of truth, that the prophet that should come into the world. And so after the people saw this miracle, they realized that this truly was Christ. I just want to leave one last story with you here, and I'm going to let you go. You guys are sitting here among many blessings, and if you're not receiving blessings today, if there's something in your life that has cut you off of blessings, I just want you to think about this story. It was actually last year, a few months ago, I was down in the gym with my boys. My wife says that my boys are hard to watch all day, and I agree with her. They're very energetic. And I was trying to relieve her burden for a little while and take them to the gym. And I was down there, and I had Drake in my arms, and Cole was at my leg here. And I walked out, and I don't know how it happened, but somehow I closed the door, and Cole was locked inside the gym. There was no way for me to reach him. There was no way for me to get to him. And I said, Cole, and I tried to say it as calmly as possible. I said, Cole, Dad's going to come around. I said, there's no way that Dad can get through this door. I said, I'm coming around. I will be with you very quickly. And I remember running up the sidewalk in front of the library, running up the street here, and the person I did not want to see was my wife standing out front, and my wife was standing out front. And she said, where is Cole? And that's not the question that I want her to ask at this time, and neither do I care to explain. And I said, honey, Cole's locked down in the gym, and I need to hurry and get there, and I'll explain it to you later. And so I went running, and I remember coming down into the gym, and there was my little boy just standing there calmly as possible. If it were me, I'd probably been bouncing off the wall and wondering what's going on, how to get out of that gym, scared to death, screaming. But there was my little boy, Cole, just standing as calmly as possible, waiting on Daddy to get his foolish self down there. And he was calmly waiting on me. But my challenge to you today is that if you're cut off from God, and if you're cut off from His blessings, if you don't see this blessed side of life, I just want to say to you that God is quickly trying to get to wherever you are. He's quickly trying to make a way to you today. And I challenge you to just stand there patiently and wait on God and say, God, I need your help and presence. I don't feel you right now. I don't feel all of these things. And of course, I know we can't go based on spiritual feeling, but you know whether or not you're in the presence or you're on the right relationship with God. And I want you to patiently wait on Jesus because He's graciously, He's quickly, He's always trying to get to wherever you are. Whatever you've been cut off from in your relationship with God, I challenge you that God is quickly trying to get to wherever you are. Let's all stand today.
We're glad you joined us. God's Bible School and College prepares students for lives of ministry wherever God calls them. This content is possible because of the generous support of friends like you. To support GBSC, visit giving.gbs.edu. Thank you.